Have you ever found yourself daydreaming about that, perfect place to live, the ideal city where everything just clicks?
All right.
Like your commute is breezy, the air feels clean, maybe there's just this vibrant energy that makes every day feel, well, exciting.
Or maybe the opposite, right? Like a peaceful, orderly haven where life just flows
Yeah.
smoothly without the constant grind.
Exactly. What if you could cut through all the noise, all the lists, and get a real shortcut to understanding what truly makes a city desirable without having to sift through tons of reports yourself?
Yeah, get straight to the good stuff.
And maybe, just maybe, in doing that, we could help you figure out if that old saying is true. Is change really the spice of life? Is constantly moving fun?
Or is finding that one place, that deeply satisfying home base, actually more fulfilling in the long run? Is staying put actually boring? Or is it grounding?
That's the big question we're tackling today. Welcome to the Deep Dive.
Hey, everyone.
Today we're taking a really deep dive into that fascinating universal question. What makes a city truly livable, lovable, and even prosperous?
We're going to navigate through some major global rankings, look at the specifics, the sometimes surprising factors that really define a high quality of urban life.
And hopefully shed some light on that whole staying put versus always moving debate. We'll dissect what keeps people really in love with their cities and what makes some places just consistently draw people in year after year.
That's right. And for this deep dive, we've pulled from three really comprehensive, pretty heavy-hitting sources. We've got the Economist Intelligence Units, that's the EIU Global Livability Index for 2025.
Okay.
And there's Monocle's Quality of Life Survey, also for 2025, and Resonance's World's Best Cities 2025 report.
That's a lot of data.
It is. And on top of that, we've brought in some insights from a really fantastic BBC deep dive that looked specifically at the world's happiest cities. So together, these sources give us this rich tapestry, hard data, expert analysis, but also, crucially, the perceptions and actual experiences of the people living there.
Right, the human element. So our mission today is basically to pull out the most important nuggets of knowledge from all this material. We want to give you a genuinely well-informed perspective on urban living. We'll look globally, of course, but we'll definitely bring it home with a strong American perspective, too.
Yeah, see how U.S. cities stack up.
We'll examine what makes certain cities stand out, what challenges they're facing, and maybe, just maybe, help you think about what might be the right fit for you. Okay, let's get started. Let's unpack this.
Let's do it.
So, to kick things off, let's talk about the real basics, the foundations of what makes a city livable in the first place. The EIU's Livability Index seems like a great starting point for that.
It really is. Their 2025 report assesses, I think it's 173 cities globally, and they use 30 different indicators, all neatly grouped into 5 core categories.
And these 5 pillars are stability, healthcare, culture and environment, education, and infrastructure. These aren't just random groupings, are they? They feel pretty fundamental.
Oh, absolutely. They represent those foundational human needs that, when a city actually meets them well, it creates an environment where people and the city itself can truly thrive. Each city gets a score, 1 to 100. 100 is basically ideal city living.
And 1 is?
Yeah, 1 is pretty much intolerable. What's really striking this year, though, is the big shakeup right at the very top of that list.
It really is. I saw that. For the first time in 3 years, Vienna isn't number 1.
Nope. Copenhagen, Denmark, has officially taken the top spot in the EIU's 2025 index.
Wow. And they score perfectly in 3 categories.
Yep, perfect 100s for stability, education, and infrastructure, which is pretty impressive.
Incredible. So Vienna slipped. Still high up, though.
Oh, yeah, still incredibly high. Joint second place. But its stability score dipped just a little bit, apparently after some recent terrorism scares. Still got perfect scores for healthcare, education, and infrastructure, though. But yeah, that top spot change is significant in these rankings.
Definitely makes headlines. But it's important to look at the other end of the list too, right? These rankings aren't just about celebrating the winners.
Absolutely not. They starkly highlight some profound ongoing challenges. The EIU report points out, again, that Damascus in Syria is still the least livable city out of the 173 they surveyed, scored a really grim 30.7 out of 100.
Oof. Even with recent changes there.
Doesn't seem to have helped the livability score much, unfortunately. The city's still deeply scarred by years of civil war, and the report shows basically no improvement, especially in stability and healthcare.
That stuff. And Tripoli.
Tripoli, Libya, is just 1 spot above Damascus, also facing these persistent, really difficult challenges with stability. Residents are living under immense pressure, huge uncertainty. These low scores, they're not just numbers on a page. They represent real, immense human hardship.
Yeah. Puts everything else into perspective, doesn't it? Okay, so beyond the individual city rankings, what were some of the broader trends you picked up from the EIU report this year? Because sometimes that average score can hide what's really going on underneath.
That's a great point. And what truly stands out is this. While the average livability score across all 173 cities stayed stagnant, stuck at 76.1, the underlying trends, they paint a much more complex and, frankly, somewhat worrying picture.
How so?
Stability scores, on average, have actually fallen globally. And this isn't just some abstract number. It's a direct reflection of things we see in the news every day: escalating geopolitical tensions, civil unrest popping up in more places. Even housing crises are impacting stability now.
Wow, so real-world consequences.
Very real. Things like terrorist attacks, or even just the threat of them in Western Europe. Rising crime rates in some areas, increased xenophobia. These things understandably erode people's sense of security day to day.
Can you give us some specific examples of how that instability showed up in the scores?
Sure. Take Tehran, for instance. The report links their stability downgraded, partly to the escalation of the Israeli-Gaza conflict and the increasing tension with the U.S. That global instability hits home.
Right.
For cities in Taiwan, it's the growing uncertainty over China's intentions in the Taiwan Strait. That potential conflict creates a background anxiety.
Makes sense.
And in India, cities like Delhi saw a downgrade after a major terrorist attack targeting civilians, which then led to military confrontation with Pakistan. Now, there was a ceasefire eventually, but that underlying hostile relationship between two nuclear-armed neighbors, that directly impacts how safe people feel in the region, and it gets reflected in these livability scores.
It's pretty sobering to think that these big global events can so directly affect how stable, how secure you feel just walking down your own street.
It really is. It highlights how interconnected everything is.
But it wasn't all negative news in the EIU report, was it? Were there any bright spots, areas showing improvement?
Yeah, there were. On a more positive note, the average scores for healthcare, education, and infrastructure all saw some marginal improvements globally.
Okay, that's good.
And the upswing in healthcare specifically was really driven significantly by cities in Saudi Arabia and the UAE. Their governments, being oil-rich, are investing heavily. They're expanding public health care, building state-of-the-art hospitals, attracting huge investment into medical research and tech.
So targeted government spending can really move the needle.
It definitely can. It shows how strategic, sustained investment can directly influence livability and the overall well-being of the population.
So basically, cities are feeling the heat from global instability, but proactive investment in core services can still make a difference. That's a really fascinating dynamic.
It is. What's particularly striking here is how these big global events, geopolitical instability on one side, massive targeted investments on the other, how they directly impact something as tangible, as personal, as a city's livability score.
Yeah.
It really raises an important question, I think, about how resilient our cities truly are to these external shocks. Can cities effectively shield their residents from global anxieties? Or do those anxieties inevitably trickle down, shaping our sense of safety, our daily lives?
That's a deep question. Makes perfect sense, though. Okay, so let's shift gears a bit. Moving from the EIU's very structured approach, let's look at Resonance's World's Best Cities 2025 report. They have this unique thing called the Place Power Score.
Right. And this isn't just about statistics, which is interesting. It's also heavily about perception, about how people actually feel about a place.
How do they capture that?
Well, Resonance did something pretty innovative. They partnered with Ipsos, the polling company, and surveyed over 22,000 people across 30 countries. And they asked them a really simple but powerful question. Where would you most like to live, visit, or find job opportunities?
So it's about desirability, not just function.
Exactly. Resonance then takes these perception metrics and combines them with a whole array of performance indicators. Things like how well a city attracts prime-age populations, how much visitors spend there, the rate of new business creation. It's a blend.
And the metrics they include are fascinating. It's not just GDP and unemployment, is it?
Not at all. They look at essentials, sure, like air quality and a detailed healthcare system index, but then they add things that really shape the experience of living there. Tree cover, parks and recreation, even how good the city is for biking.
Things that impact daily life directly.
Right. And then they dive into the cultural and social vibe. Sites and landmarks, nightlife, restaurants, shopping. Plus, the critical economic factors like the price-to-income ratio, huge for affordability, educational levels, labor force participation, number of Fortune 500 HQs, university rankings. It's this whole mosaic.
It paints a really rich picture.
But what's particularly noteworthy this year, and maybe tells a story about our changing priorities, is what residents removed from their metrics.
Oh, what did they take out?
Weather and safety.
Weather and safety. Wow, those seem pretty fundamental. Why?
Their reasoning was to focus on what they see as more accurate, verified drivers of talent, investment, and tourism, which is a statement in itself, isn't it?
It really is. It raises a big question. Are we collectively starting to prioritize things like, say, robust infrastructure and economic opportunity over guaranteed sunshine or even perceived safety?
It's a subtle shift, but maybe a significant one. It makes you wonder what we truly value most in a city right now. Maybe it's less about comfort and more about dynamism.
That's a really powerful thought, a definite shift in focus. And speaking of top cities, Resonance's report crowned London as the world's best city. Again.
10th year in a row. Pretty dominant performance.
Incredible. New York takes a strong second, and Paris comes in third globally. We'll definitely dig deeper into New York later when we focus on the U.S. cities. But for now, that gives us a good sense of the big players and how these different indices work.
Yeah, sets the stage nicely.
Okay, so now let's move from those broad strokes of livability to the really distinctive strengths, the things that make specific cities truly shine. Monocle's quality of life survey is great for this, isn't it? They don't just rank, they highlight what individual cities do better than anyone else.
Exactly. This is where you really get the personality, the unique flavor of each city. And they kick off with Paris, naming it the best all-rounder and their City of the Year.
City of the Year, that's high praise.
It is. And it's remarkable, they say, how Paris, under Mayor Anne Hidalgo, her changes have been somewhat controversial at times.
Yeah, the car stuff.
Yeah, exactly. But the result, according to Monocle, is a city that's become cleaner, greener, and safer, while somehow still holding on to that inimitable Parisian charm. It's not just sitting back, it's actively reinventing itself.
That's a profound transformation, isn't it? Paris isn't just leaning on its history, it's actively making itself more livable for its citizens while still being this global magnet.
And the commitment to pedestrians and bikes is just staggering.
Tell me about it. 70% of Parisians don't own cars. That number blows my mind for a city like Paris.
I know. And they have a citywide 19-mile-per-hour speed limit. They're promising 435 miles of bike paths by 2026. Apparently, at rush hour now, there are more bikes than cars on the road.
That's amazing. And more pedestrian areas, too.
Yep, an extra 30 hectares just since 2020. It's a fundamental shift in how the city feels and functions, moving away from being car-centric.
Okay, let's unpack this. Paris isn't just resting on its historic laurels. It's actively reinventing itself, making it more livable for its citizens while still being a global magnet. Here's where it gets really interesting. The cultural side hasn't suffered, has it?
Not at all. Still world-beating. You've got huge cultural draws like the Tadao Ando design, Bourse de Commerce, recently renovated. It ranks in the top 3 globally for shopping, culture, concerts, and museums, over 100 museums.
Wow.
And get this, Paris has apparently snatched London's crown as Europe's top hub for venture capital and tech. So it's economically dynamic, too.
So it's evolving on all fronts, but is it just for the tourists and the tech bros? What about affordability for regular Parisians?
That's a key point Monocle makes. They're working on it. Property prices actually fallen a bit in the last 2 years. And their social housing policies, this mixité social, are designed to protect lower-income residents and even small businesses like traditional butchers and independent bookshops.
How much social housing are we talking?
Over a quarter of Parisians live in social housing, which is astounding for a major global capital.
That is incredible.
Plus, it's still a hospitality powerhouse. 122 Michelin-starred restaurants, second most dense concentration on the planet. And 25 new 5-star hotels opened recently. So yeah, it's evolving for residents and visitors. It shows that connection to a place can be about dynamic change, not just staying the same.
Definitely. Okay, shifting from Paris, Vienna. We know it lost the top EIU spot, but Monocle highlights it as a model for housing, right? Best for housing.
Absolutely. Its social housing program, the Gemeindebauten, is just exceptional. They're still building around 6,000 flats every year, and crucially, they distribute them across all districts.
Why is that distribution important?
To deliberately prevent segregation. It fosters social cohesion, integrating people from different income levels across the city, rather than concentrating poverty or wealth in specific areas.
That makes so much sense. And what does this mean for the average Viennese person day to day?
It means profound financial stability, honestly. A hugely reduced stress about finding affordable housing. The program is surprisingly generous. The income cap to qualify is pretty high, around 59,000 euros a year for a single person, nearly 89,000 for a couple.
So it covers a wide range of people.
Exactly. Over half of Vienna's 2 million residents live in some form of subsidized housing, and the rents are incredibly low. Monaco cites an example, 420 euros a month for a decent-sized council flat.
420 a year. That's unthinkable in most big cities.
Right. One resident apparently described Vienna as the only landlord that tries to keep you in rather than kick you out, which is such a stark contrast to the housing crises we see elsewhere, especially in the U.S. This commitment to housing as a right, it fosters this deep sense of security, stability. Maybe it lessens that feeling that you have to keep moving just to afford life.
It really drives home how fundamental good housing is. If we connect this to the bigger picture, Vienna offers this compelling counter-narrative, doesn't it? It really raises an important question about how cities can prioritize housing as a right and the massive long-term benefits that brings for stability and just resident well-being.
Couldn't agree more. Okay, from housing, let's talk mobility. Zurich is Monaco's exemplar here.
The Zurich model.
Yeah, for public transport. They prioritize trams and buses heavily. They even have 24-hour bus service on weekends and sensors that adjust traffic lights to give transit priority, keeping things flowing smoothly.
Sounds efficient.
Very. And they're looking beyond trams, too. They have a 2030 bike plan, a 2040 mobility strategy, all focused on more cycle lanes, connecting suburbs better. The whole ethos is about redistributing street space to give more room to pedestrians and cyclists.
That sounds great, but residents also describe Zurich as orderly, clean, and safe with this unofficial motto. If it doesn't say yes, assume it's a no. Doesn't that sound a bit rigid? Maybe even a little boring for some. Could it stifle spontaneity?
It's a fair question. But for Zurich residents, according to Monocle, that predictability translates directly into a remarkably stress-free daily life.
How so?
The clear rules contribute directly to that sense of order. It keeps the streets clean, the transport reliable, and for families, it means kids can apparently go to school alone from a young age. That speaks volumes about the level of safety and trust baked into the city. So maybe it doesn't cater to someone craving constant, unpredictable change. But it offers this undeniable calm, this ease that many people find deeply appealing. Stability over chaos.
Makes sense. Okay, next up, Madrid. The healthiest metropolis. What makes it so healthy?
Well, for starters, it boasts the highest life expectancy of any European metropolis, 86.1 years.
Wow.
And it's not just about healthcare access, though that's good too. Their urban planning is designed to help communities flourish. They have nonprofits like Grandes Amigos promoting intergenerational relationships to combat loneliness, fostering social connection.
So social health is part of physical health?
Exactly. Plus, there's a strong emphasis on work-life balance and, let's be honest, delicious food. It's a holistic approach to well-being woven into the city's fabric. Health isn't just hospitals, it's daily life.
Love that. Okay, now for something completely different. Athens. Best for nightlife and a 24-hour city.
Yeah, Athens has apparently transformed post-debt crisis. It's become this discerning night owl's playground, one of Europe's few genuinely 24-hour cities now.
What makes it 24-hour?
Relaxed licensing laws play a big part. It creates this lively but still laid-back atmosphere. Clubs can stay open basically as long as people are having fun. There's this fluidity.
Spontaneity again.
Right. And tourism has boomed post-pandemic, 7.9 million visitors last year. They're marketing it heavily as a 24-hour city. The metro runs till 2 a.m. on weekends, taxis are cheap and plentiful.
And affordable fun.
Apparently so. A glass of wine is less than 6 euros on average. Makes socializing really accessible. As one local told Monocle, no one is ever bored in Athens. That kind of sums up its energy. It's a city for those who crave constant activity, always something happening.
No one is ever bored. That's quite a claim. It definitely speaks to a different kind of livability, one built on constant motion. Okay, meanwhile, Barcelona is leading the charge on urban greening.
Yes, showing how forward-thinking design can have a massive impact. They're really proactive with environmental policies, especially the Super Rills or Super Blocks initiative.
Explain superblocks again.
They basically take clusters of streets, usually car-dominated intersections, and transform them into people-first green spaces. They restrict through traffic, add seating, trees, play areas, reclaiming the street for the community.
And it's working.
Seems so.
Yeah.
Monaco reports a 22% reduction in CO2 emissions in those areas, plus increased foot traffic for local small businesses. And pilot projects even suggest improved mental health for residents living nearby. It shows that greening isn't just cosmetic. It fundamentally changes how people experience and interact with their neighborhood.
But Barcelona also highlights that classic tension, doesn't it? Progress versus equity.
Absolutely. While the greening is ambitious and beneficial, gentrification and touristification are huge ongoing issues there. Creating these lovely new parks can, unfortunately, drive up property prices nearby.
So who benefits?
Exactly. It raises that critical question. How do you balance progress with equity? How do you ensure these improvements benefit all residents, especially long-term ones, and not just push them out? It's that constant struggle between improving a city and keeping its soul intact.
A challenge many cities face. Okay, let's hop over to Mexico City, celebrated for conviviality and green growth.
Yeah, it sounds fascinating. It's attracting people looking for quality over quantity, apparently. It has this wonderfully laid-back attitude and this tradition of sobremesa, where people linger at the table for hours after a meal, just talking and connecting.
That sounds lovely. And it's attracting people.
Big time. Significant population growth from the U.S. and Canada, something like 600,000 new residents between 2019 and 2023. So its unique lifestyle's clearly appealing.
Even though it's huge.
Yeah, despite its massive size, many neighborhoods apparently retain this small-town feel. And it's designed for movement, walkable streets, over 400 kilometers of bike lanes, the second largest metro system on the continent.
And the green growth part.
They've planted a staggering 44.2 million trees since 2019. A massive effort to improve air quality and combat climate change. Shows a real commitment to environmental health alongside that cultural vibrancy.
Mexico City sounds like a place where newcomers can really integrate and find a sense of home, blending global connections with local charm. What about Lisbon, the gold standard for safe streets?
That's what Monaco calls it. And apparently, people moving there, Brazilians, Europeans, Americans, consistently cite safety as a major reason.
Is there data to back that up?
Yep, a remarkable 7.6% drop in crime in the metro area and a 1.8% drop in violent crime just in 2024.
How are they achieving that?
A big focus seems to be on community policing, assigning officers long-term to specific neighborhoods so they build familiarity, foster dialogue with residents.
So it's about relationships, not just patrols.
It seems like it. And it leads to this ambient, everyday safety. Monaco mentions residents feeling comfortable leaving a purse on a pram, or kids traveling alone to school. That's a powerful testament to a deep sense of security. And its late-night culture is apparently relaxed, not dominated by heavy drinking, making evenings feel pleasant and safe.
That's a really crucial differentiator. Okay, then there's Tokyo, the pinnacle of cleanliness. For a city that massive, how?
It is bafflingly clean, isn't it? For a city of 10 million plus a metro area of 44 million.
So what's the secret? Is it just armies of cleaners?
It's more complex than that. It's a combination of efficient services and deep collective responsibility. Rubbish vans are super efficient. Caretakers called Kanrinen keep public spaces spotless. Shopkeepers clean their storefronts. Volunteers do regular cleanup drives.
But there are hardly any street bins, right?
Exactly. They largely disappeared after the 1995 sarin gas attack for security reasons, so people are just expected to manage their own litter, often carrying it home. It's ingrained. They're introducing some smart bins now, mainly for tourists. And then there's the Tokyo Toilet Project, these architect-designed, spotlessly clean public toilets all over the city. It's a statement. And underlying it all are these philosophical roots, apparently tied to the Shinto religion's ideas about clean versus unclean spaces. It's a deep cultural value, backed by significant spending like $105 billion on waste management.
That's fascinating, a blend of practical policy, cultural norms, and maybe even spirituality. Okay, last one from Monocle. Tallinn, Estonia, a haven for startups.
Absolutely. Known for its really tight-knit entrepreneurial network and genuinely world-leading digital infrastructure.
Unicorns.
Loads of them per capita. Highest rates in Europe, I think. Strong VC network, good tech talent pipeline. And Estonia's e-residency program is a huge draw.
Explain e-residency again.
It allows non-nationals people anywhere in the world to open and manage an EU-based business completely online, often in minutes. And crucially, you only pay taxes when you distribute profits, not on reinvested earnings. Massive advantage for startups.
That's a game changer. What's the feel of the city like?
Founders apparently love the community feel. It's approachable. You can actually connect with government officials, industry leaders relatively easily. And again, safety and overall quality of life are cited as decisive factors for people choosing to relocate there. It's a place geared towards building something new, but within a stable, supportive environment.
Okay, wow. So we've seen this incredible diversity in what makes cities shine globally. From housing in Vienna to nightlife in Athens, cleanliness in Tokyo. But what does this all mean for us here in the United States? Let's really zoom in now on the American perspective. How do our cities stack up?
All right, let's bring it home. When we look at another index, Numbio's Quality of Life Index for mid-2025, we get some really intriguing insights specifically for the U.S. Among American cities, guess who comes out on top?
New York, L.A.
Nope. Raleigh, North Carolina. It's ranked 24th overall globally.
Raleigh. Okay, who else?
Madison, Wisconsin follows right behind at 26th, then Kansas City, Missouri at 28th, and Omaha, Nebraska at 29th.
Interesting. These are often not the cities that dominate the headlines when we talk about top-tier urban living, are they?
Not usually, no. But they perform really well across many of Numbio's indicators, often flying under the radar in those broader best city discussions, but clearly offering a high quality of life for residents.
That's a fascinating contrast to the big coastal hubs. But there's one area where U.S. cities often seem to lag behind European ones in these rankings. Safety.
Yeah, that disparity really stands out. Many U.S. cities have notably lower safety index scores than the Numbio data. You mentioned St. Louis at 30.3, Baltimore at 27.3. Compare that to The Hague in the Netherlands at 80.0, or Bern, Switzerland at 77.6. It's a stark difference.
Why is safety such a persistent challenge for some American cities, and how does that feel for residents? Does it drag down that overall sense of livability?
It's incredibly complex, obviously, tied to deep socioeconomic factors, historical legacies, gun policy debates, policing strategies, lots of things. But yes, it absolutely impacts the perceived security environment. When people don't feel safe, it affects everything, whether they use public transport at night, whether kids can play outside freely, the vibrancy of downtown areas after dark. It definitely erodes that sense of well-being and community.
Makes sense. What about affordability? That's another huge one, especially in the U.S. How do we fare there?
It's a real mixed bag. Numbio uses the property price to income ratio, which is a great measure, basically. How many average annual salaries does it take to buy an average home?
Lower is better, right?
Lower is much better, more affordable. And interestingly, many of those top-ranked U.S. cities we just mentioned, Raleigh 3.4, Madison 3.1, Kansas City 2.5, Omaha 2.3, they actually show better affordability, lower ratios than many big European or Asian cities.
So some U.S. cities are comparatively affordable.
Yes, definitely, especially in the Midwest and parts of the South. However, and this is the big however,
Here it comes.
the major coastal U.S. cities, completely different story. New York's ratio is a staggering 15.4.
15-year salary for a home. Ouch.
Right. Los Angeles is 8.1, San Francisco 7.0, Seattle 4.7. Much, much higher, meaning way less affordable housing. Huge financial pressure on residents in those places.
So affordability really varies wildly across the U.S.
Massively. Residents highlights New York City's median rent hitting the mid-U.S. $5,000 a month. That's just eye-watering.
Yeah.
And that's despite local law 18 cracking down on short-term rentals like Airbnb, which you'd think might ease pressure. Just shows the sheer overwhelming demand to live there. Cost be damned.
Crazy demand. What about commutes? Another classic American pain point.
Yeah. Numbio data suggests many U.S. cities also have higher, meaning worse, traffic commute time index scores compared to top European cities. Longer commutes, more time stuck in traffic. That definitely eats into your daily quality of life, adds stress. So you might find affordability in some U.S. cities, but maybe pay for it with a longer commute, or vice versa.
Trade-offs everywhere. Okay, that gives us a good overview of the U.S. landscape strengths in some areas, significant challenges in safety, affordability, and commutes in others. Let's dive deeper into some specific U.S. cities using Resonance's insights now. New York ranked second overall globally. They called it the epitome of urban recovery.
They really did. And the rankings back it up. #1 globally for prosperity, #2 for livability. It's an economic powerhouse that knows how to bounce back.
We mentioned the sky-high rents, but tourism is booming.
Roaring back,
Okay.
62.2 million visitors in 2023. That injects huge energy and, frankly, money into the city. Plus, massive cultural investments are happening. The Met Museum's $500 million renovation, new museums opening, performing arts centers.
But it's not just finance.
Not at all. And Lower Manhattan, which used to feel dead after 5 p.m., is apparently transforming into a genuine 24/7 destination with more residents, restaurants, things to do. It's got this incredibly robust business ecosystem, tons of Fortune 500 companies, world-class universities. New York just knows how to adapt, innovate, and thrive. For people who crave that constant change, that energy, those endless opportunities, it's still the ultimate magnet, isn't it?
It really seems like it. Okay, down south to Miami. 23rd overall on residences list, showing a different kind of rapid growth, right? What's driving Miami's surge?
Miami's growth is fueled by this incredible openness to newcomers. It has the highest percentage of foreign-born residents of any major U.S. city. It's attracting traditional immigrants, yes, but also this huge wave of Silicon Valley tech folks relocating, remote workers chasing the sun and lifestyle, even billionaires like Jeff Bezos moving in.
So a real mix of people flowing in.
A huge mix. And the tech sector is booming. Over 1,100 multinational companies now have a presence there. You see significant luxury developments changing the skyline, but also interesting infrastructure projects like the Underline.
What's the Underline?
It's this cool project transforming the land underneath their elevated metro rail into a 10-mile linear park, urban trail, and public art space.
Yeah.
Really innovative use of space. Miami feels like a city in constant motion, constantly reinventing itself. It's all about change, newness, opportunity right now.
Definitely a city grabbing attention.
Yeah.
But then we have Austin, ranked 53rd, often hyped as this cool, innovative tech hub. Is it managing its growth well, or are there maybe some growing pains?
Austin definitely is an innovation hub. University of Texas in Austin is a huge anchor.
Yeah.
And it's been a magnet for big tech companies. Tesla moving its HQ there was massive news. You see rapid high-rise development, whole new urban skyline emerging.
Yeah.
But that growth comes with significant downsides, according to residents. Office vacancy rates are actually rising, partly due to the remote work boom maybe they overbuilt. And housing is now among the least affordable in the entire U.S., even with some recent price drops.
So the boom is making it harder to live there.
Exactly. It perfectly illustrates that tension between rapid growth and maintaining livability. Can you attract all this talent and investment without pricing out the very people who make the city vibrant? Austin is grappling with that right now. It shows how explosive change can really strain a city's resources and affordability, forcing people to question if the opportunities are worth the cost.
A cautionary tale, perhaps. Now, Portland, Oregon at 39th overall. That's a particularly poignant story, isn't it?
Yeah.
It used to be held up as this progressive urban utopia. What's happening there now?
Portland's narrative, as Resonance describes it, is really one of struggle and trying to find its footing again. It's grappling with some really tough, visible challenges. A significant surge in homelessness, up almost 70%, a concerning rise in vehicle theft, shootings, things that weren't part of its image a decade ago.
And people are leaving.
Its population actually shrank recently for the first time in decades. That's a clear sign that residents are feeling the strain.
Yeah.
Yet, it still holds a relatively high livability ranking in residents' system. It still has amazing parks and recreation, that strong craft beer culture, almost 100 breweries.
So the core strengths are still there?
The bones are still good, you could say. It feels like a city actively fighting to reclaim its identity, trying to square its progressive ideals with these very real immediate crises. It really makes you ask, can a city reinvent itself or maybe remember its former self when facing such profound internal struggles?
A tough situation. But on the flip side of that reinvention coin, Detroit, ranked 59th overall. Residents calls it America's comeback story. What makes Detroit so compelling right now?
Detroit has seen truly massive investment, residents estimates around $7 billion across more than 200 projects. It's driving this profound transformation. And crucially, a key part of its comeback narrative is affordability.
How affordable?
Get this, Residents ranks Detroit #1 globally for its price-to-income ratio, meaning housing is incredibly affordable compared to local incomes. That's a massive draw for people feeling squeezed out elsewhere.
That is huge, a real counterpoint to the coastal cities.
Absolutely. And you see symbolic projects, too. The historic Michigan Central Station, that beautiful old train station that sat derelict for years, it just reopened as a big research lab and community space, part tech hub, part public asset. Ford invested heavily there. The Motown Museum is undergoing a major renovation. It's connecting its future to its past.
So leveraging its heritage while building new opportunities.
Exactly. It's a really compelling example of a city reinventing itself, drawing people back, not just with jobs, but with this promise of a stable, affordable life, a chance to own a home, build community. It proves some cities really can be born again. Maybe staying put in a place undergoing positive change is the most exciting thing of all.
Interesting thought. And finally, quickly, Raleigh, 95th overall. We mentioned it topped the U.S. list for NUMBIO. Resonance highlights its connection to the Research Triangle.
Yeah, Raleigh benefits hugely from that proximity to universities like Duke, UNC, and NC State.
Wow.
It has incredibly high educational attainment, ranked 6th globally by Resonance. That attracts talent and companies.
Like Apple.
Exactly. Apple's building a massive $1 billion campus there. That's a huge vote of confidence. And it's still attracting new residents with relatively affordable housing, although prices are definitely rising as its popularity grows. These U.S. cities, they really show a wide spectrum, don't they? Different strengths, different challenges, offering very diverse answers to that question of what makes a good place to call home long term.
Absolutely. Okay, we've looked at livability through data, economics, infrastructure, urban design, all really important stuff. But what about that less tangible, maybe more crucial factor? Just happiness.
The feeling of living somewhere.
Exactly. The BBC's Happiest Cities report shifts our focus there. It delves more into the qualitative side, into what residents actually say makes them happy, beyond the raw data. It captures a different kind of urban success.
It really does. It's about how a city feels day to day, not just how it performs on a spreadsheet. And interestingly, Copenhagen, which topped the EIU index, also ranks as the happiest city, according to the BBC interviews.
So livability and happiness can go hand in hand. What do Copenhagen residents say makes them happy?
They consistently praise the emphasis on alternative safe transport. Nearly a third of the population bikes regularly. The metro runs like clockwork. Predictable, stress-free commutes seem key.
Makes sense. Commuting stress is killer.
Totally. And one resident summed it up beautifully. Joy is seamlessly woven into daily life, not through extravagance, but through intentional design. That phrase, intentional design, really nails it. They're deliberately creating an environment for well-being. It suggests that stability and thoughtful planning are routes to happiness.
I love that. Intentional design for joy. It suggests happiness isn't just luck. It's a result of good planning. Okay, what about Zurich? Second happiest. We heard about its orderliness. Does that make people happy?
Apparently, yes. Residents consistently highlight the ease of living there. For parents, it's the perfect place to raise a family because it's so safe. Kids going to school alone from kindergarten, that's a huge sign of trust and low stress for parents.
Unheard of in many places.
Right. Public transport is always on time. The city's exceptionally clean, organized. Another resident put it perfectly. All these aspects make daily life so easy, so predictable, that they absorb the stress you'd otherwise experience. Even that unofficial motto, if it doesn't say yes, assume it's a no, while sounding rigid, translates into this remarkable order and security that fosters genuine daily contentment for residents.
So, stability and predictability are key ingredients for happiness, maybe more than constant excitement for some people. Interesting. Singapore is third happiest. What's their secret? Safety, health, financial protection.
A lot of it seems tied to their public housing scheme, the HDB. It helps a huge proportion of citizens achieve homeownership and build financial assets. That provides this really strong foundation of security.
Financial peace of mind.
Exactly. Residents also rave about how the city's infrastructure just makes enjoying life easy. They highlight the green space, safety, and multicultural inclusivity. One person shared this great quote: "You can go from pitching a global client downtown to enjoying satay by the waterfront all in the same evening." It speaks volumes about balance, right? A rich life where work and play coexist smoothly, maybe reducing the urge to constantly seek something new elsewhere.
A well-rounded life. Okay, Aarhus, Denmark fourth happiest. The world's smallest big city. What's that blend like?
That combination of having urban amenities but still feeling like a small community clearly works for residents' happiness. It scores well across the board, especially on things like environment and health. It has this energetic, youthful vibe, thanks to the universities. A resident mentioned how people come out of hibernation in spring and summer to enjoy the parks and canals together. A happiness tied to community rituals and connection with nature.
Sounds lovely. And rounding out the top 5 happiest. Antwerp, Belgium. What's their formula?
Antwerp gets praise for reliable public transport, safe cycling, and its compact size. It all adds up to what residents call calm efficiency. The city also actively invests in progressive policies supporting working families, social housing, sustainability, things that make daily life easier and more enjoyable.
Practical support.
Yeah. And one resident noted how seriously Antwerp takes its green spaces and cultural life, describing it as a place where people genuinely make time to enjoy life, not just grind through it. That emphasis on efficiency plus quality of life allows for a kind of stability that people clearly value deeply.
Okay, hearing about these happy cities focusing on stability, ease, community, it really brings us back to that philosophical question for you, our listener. Given all these factors, stability, culture, transport, community, even this intentional design for happiness, does it start to sound, well, boring to stay in one place? Is constant moving, constant change really more fun? We've seen cities that are always reinventing and others offering this deep, enduring calm. Which path is truly the spice of life for you?
It's such a core question, isn't it? And if we connect this back to all the sources, they really suggest there's this fundamental split in what makes a city desirable, depending on the individual. On one hand, you have these incredibly dynamic, ever-changing cities offering constant new opportunities. Think Paris with its ongoing reinvention, or New York with its perpetual energy and rebirth. They cater to a desire for novelty, for ambition.
The thrill of the new.
Exactly. For some, maybe that is the spice of life. The constant adaptation, the new challenges, the excitement that comes with frequent relocation or living somewhere that's always in flux.
But then the data, especially from the happiness reports and even the livability indices focusing on stability and services, implies something else too. For many people, maybe most, a high quality of life, that deeply satisfying sense of well-being, seems rooted in factors like feeling safe day to day, having reliable public services, enjoying green spaces easily, and feeling part of a strong community.
Right. And those qualities, safety, community, reliable services, they're often built and nurtured over time. Through long-term investment, both by the city and by the residents themselves putting down roots, it makes a compelling case for staying put, for investing in a place, becoming part of its fabric. For these people, maybe stability isn't boredom at all. Maybe it's the essential foundation for contentment and a meaningful life.
So staying put allows you to build something deeper.
Perhaps. But then you also have that powerful lure of the new. We talked about cities like Lisbon or Mexico City actively attracting newcomers, digital nomads, precisely because of their unique appeal right now, their changing dynamics. They offer a different kind of excitement, maybe less about quiet daily contentment and more about discovery, different cultural rhythms, maybe a lower cost of living that enables a different lifestyle.
So the spice of life really depends on your personal recipe for happiness.
I think that's exactly it. Whether your ideal recipe is rooted in deep stability and community or in constant exploration and novelty, there's no single right answer.
Which means the best city is just profoundly personal, isn't it? It depends entirely on what you prioritize. Are you chasing those big job opportunities in a nonstop cultural scene? Or are you looking for affordability, safety, maybe a quieter, family-friendly environment with easy access to nature?
Do you thrive on constant change and stimulation? Or do you crave stability, predictability, deep roots, maybe a less stressful daily life?
There's no single winner. These reports, taken together, really highlight that whole spectrum of desires. They show that both staying put and constantly moving can be deeply fulfilling paths, depending entirely on what you value most at different stages of your life.
Well said.
Okay, we have covered a lot of ground today. We've explored how these global rankings use incredibly different lenses, from hard economic data and infrastructure scores to perceptions of happiness and the strength of community spirit, to try and define what makes a city great.
We've seen that continuous reinvention in cities like Paris and Detroit, the almost deliberate, steadfast appeal of places like Vienna and Zurich, focusing on core livability, and the really unique mix of challenges and vibrant opportunities right here in American cities.
It's clear that the qualities adding up to a high quality of life are incredibly diverse and often, like you said, deeply personal. From Zurich's calm efficiency to Athens' 24/7 buzz, from Detroit's remarkable affordability to Tokyo's baffling cleanliness, each city offers this distinct blend.
A blend that attracts certain kinds of people and fosters specific ways of life.
So maybe here's a final thought to leave you with. In today's world, with increasing interconnectedness, and especially with the rise of remote work giving so many people unprecedented geographic freedom, maybe the ultimate best city isn't about topping some global index anymore.
Maybe not.
Maybe instead it's about finding that perfect synergy, that sweet spot between a city's unique offerings, its personality, its strengths, its weaknesses even, and your individual values, your personal definition of what it means to thrive. Does the data we've unpacked today make you reconsider what you truly seek in a place to call home? Or perhaps it inspires you to look again, maybe appreciate the unique qualities of where you are right now, what stands out to you, and how might that reshape your own search or appreciation for that perfect place.